So being that this is like a down year, like, are you
Mhm.
optimistic about anything?
Yeah, I am. I am. I'm optimistic because what I see is because I work in one, two, three, like 6 different countries, and so what I see global acceptance in cannabis increasing, and I see the merging of technology in cannabis. So you're seeing all the science, all these different industries that previously couldn't touch cannabis can now touch cannabis. So what you have is the ability to really drive forward in a way we couldn't prior. So I think most of us had to become scientists. We had to become all the different things needed to operate. And now we're able to actually reach out and work collaboratively. So to me, the discovery of what we're really doing and how we do it is just the covers are being ripped off, and you're able to really refine process and get a better understanding. And that I'm just fascinated with, and I think it's just awesome. So I try to look past the economic collapse because I know it's a cycle. I know we're in the parabola of that bowl, and I know that when we come out of it, we'll go back into some form of normality, and we may never achieve the historic peaks that we once did. But there should be an ability to stabilize the farms and create a lifestyle for small operators, and then also the ability for some of these bigger operators to really refine process and get their product into a range that fits their market segment correctly. And so for me, I try to look past the chaos so that I can see the positive, and I really do see a lot of really good things. It's the culling of the craft operators that's heavy, because it was almost as if none of them ever existed prior. And so we're building this new industry and everybody's so happy, but it was built on the backs of a lot of people. And especially in the US, it was built on the backs of a lot of people that aren't white and
Yep.
not men and not necessarily straight. And so you have these distinctions that have to be brought out to understand who really shaped and crafted the world we're in today. And I think that it's a tough one to have to always explain to people. You need to look at the other people in the room and give them credit too. And so
I
to me,
agree.
it's odd, but I see that the conversation's occurring. And then, like with the equity programs, I'm involved in an equity program with Cookies, where I'm one of your instructors. And it's taking people from equity situations, and we bring them out to our facility, and they live with us for a couple of months, and we put them through a really good training program, and then try to position them into the industry with better jobs, because now they have an education and connections. And I'm just grateful I get to be part of it, because it's just so genuine. It's a feel good in the best kind of way.
That's
And you
awesome.
work on you have many different facets to what you do.
Yeah, I do. But I have to tell you, I think the global thing is what excites me as well. Actually, I had the opportunity to go to Regenibus Cannabis Live at the UN. And this was really the first time that I kind of was pulled out of the US market. They had people speaking from Malta, Brazil, London, or England, Mexico, and to hear the perspective of other countries, like these were representatives of those countries, like the governments of those countries at the UN, was to be re-excited, because you're like, oh, they're doing amazing things under very different circumstances and a lot more hardship in some cases than we've had in the US, right?
Oh, completely.
Where in the Philippines, they'll kill you if you have
Mm-hmm.
drugs. They kill you for cannabis, right? And so to hear these different perspectives made me kind of double down on my personal crusade to make sure that cannabis is legal in the US, and then also to go help other people. But it really opened my mind. So I'm like heading down to Mexico in a couple of months to speak at a conference there. I've spoken in Costa Rica, and I just love that the global cannabis countries, like the global cannabis community, is really pushing forward for this reform in their own countries, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that made me feel, I was feeling kind of down. This was, I think, in April. So like we were starting to see this whole crash in equity, right? Where like you couldn't borrow, you couldn't get equity investment. And I was feeling kind of down. And when I went there, I really became reinvigorated, because I'm like, yeah, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We've kind of been in a sprint for a minute with all of this money flowing, but now it's the marathon part, right? Where you just have to keep trudging to get to the other side of what's negatively happening in the cannabis industry in the US. And like you, we have our own accelerator that we bring our folks through, and we just finished our cohort about a month ago, and it was 20 people. And we don't talk like, I know that sounds like what you're talking about is like working and understanding how to run your business. And what I do for my accelerator is I teach people how to raise capital. I teach people like, what is a capital stack? Why should you have a capital stack? Make sure you're not only relying on equity. What do your debt facilities look like? What do you have in your pocket so that when you hit a rough time and you need operating capital, that you already have a commitment from a debt from a debt person for facilities? We teach them not how to write their business plan. There's plenty of accelerators that do that. We actually teach them why the pro forma is important, how to read your own pro forma, because a lot of, as you know, social equity folks get these things done. They pay $25,000, they get it done, but they don't understand it. And every mistake I've ever made in raising my own capital, and I started raising capital in 2017, I tell them, I'm like, this was my mistake, because I believe people learn from mistakes, and I don't want people to make the same mistake as me, but I also want them to go into their own capital raising feeling very confident that they understand what an EBITDA means, that they understand net profit, net loss, that they understand their own financials. And so that's been my favorite thing, is to be able to teach people from my own mistakes so that they can go in feeling confident. How do you talk to an investor? How do you know if an investor's not good? Because, there's tells, right? Within the first 5 minutes, if somebody's going to invest in you or not. I tell them, don't waste your cycles. Don't go to dinners, lunch, or coffee, 20 minutes. Even though investors are important, you don't want to waste your time if they're not interested in investing in you. And I spent so much time in the beginning of my career wasting time. And you don't have that when you're an operator. You don't have time,
No, that's awesome. It's such needed skills.